Eat, Pray, Love. One Woman's Search for Everything Across Italy, India, and Indonesia by Elizabeth Gilbert. Picture this. It's 3 in the morning and you're curled up on a cold bathroom floor, hiding from your own life. The thought you've been shoving down for months finally bubbles to the surface like a stubborn air pocket. It's quiet but absolutely terrifying. I don't want this anymore. This is where Elizabeth Gilbert's story kicks off. Not in some glamorous setting, but on bathroom tiles in a gorgeous suburban New York house. From the outside looking in, Gilbert has nailed it. 8-year marriage? Check. Thriving writing career? Check. Beautiful home? Double check. She'd built what looked like the perfect life. Brick by careful brick. But here's the twist. That life had turned into a prison, and the woman staring back at her from the tile's reflection was a complete stranger. She was done with the marriage. The big house left her cold. And having a baby, which everyone assumed was the obvious next chapter, felt like signing up for a life sentence. The dream life she'd worked so hard for felt more like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. So here's the million-dollar question. What happens when you follow the blueprint perfectly, tick all the boxes, climb the ladder, only to discover you're completely miserable? What do you do when everything you thought you wanted turns out to be everything you don't? This is the beating heart of Elizabeth Gilbert's blockbuster memoir, Eat, Pray, Love. Sure, there's travel involved, but calling this just a travel book is like calling the ocean a bit of water. This is a full-blown roadmap for finding yourself when you're so lost you can't even see the path anymore. The book became a cultural phenomenon, camping out on the New York Times bestseller list for years because it named an ache so many of us carry around but rarely acknowledge out loud. It's the story of a woman who decided to bulldoze her life and rebuild it from scratch, on her own terms. Over the next while, we're going to tag along with Gilbert on her quest for, well, everything. We'll eat our way through Italy, meditate ourselves into knots in India, and find balance in Indonesia. And I can promise you this, by the time we're done, you'll understand not just how to find pleasure, devotion, and balance in your own life, but you'll also grasp the incredible bravery it takes to listen to that quiet inner voice and finally give it what it's been begging for all along. Here's the thing about Eat, Pray, Love. It doesn't start with an adventure. It starts with a spectacular personal crash. At 31, Gilbert found herself wedged into a life that photographed beautifully, but felt completely empty inside. For months, anxiety consumed her like a slow-burning fire, mixed with a confusion so deep it hurt. She cried so much, she describes it as creating an entire lake of tears across her bathroom floor. Staying in her marriage felt unbearable, but leaving felt even worse. Then one night, drowning in despair, she did something totally out of character. She prayed. Not the formal, churchy kind of prayer, but a raw, desperate plea to a God she wasn't even sure existed. She simply said, "Hello, God. I'm Liz. I'm in serious trouble. Please tell me what to do." And then, in the silence, something answered. It wasn't some booming voice from the clouds like in the movies. It was her own voice, but calmer, wiser, kinder. And it said the simplest thing. Go back to bed, Liz. That was it. Not leave him or stay forever. Just a tiny act of self-compassion. The voice told her she didn't need to solve everything at 3 in the morning. She just needed rest. This moment sparked a conversation, a dialogue with her own inner wisdom that would guide her through the wreckage ahead. 7 months later, she left her husband. But if you're expecting relief, think again. The divorce that followed was brutal, dragging on for nearly 2 years like a slow-motion car crash. She and her husband, once the two people who knew each other best in the entire world, became incomprehensible strangers. He fought the divorce tooth and nail, leaving her emotionally shredded and financially devastated. And then there was David. While her marriage was imploding, Gilbert dove headfirst into a passionate, all-consuming love affair. David was this handsome, charismatic actor/writer. She describes clinging to him as if he were the last helicopter pulling out of Saigon. He was her escape hatch, her rescue rope, her shot at happiness. For a while, their love felt electric. They had more fun waiting in line at the DMV than most couples have on vacation. But desperate love, as she discovered the hard way, is quicksand. She'd basically invented a fictional character and cast David in the lead role, demanding he play the hero who'd save her. When he inevitably failed at this impossible job, when he started pulling back from the sheer intensity of her need, everything fell apart. The more he retreated, the more desperate she became, which only made him retreat further. She describes it as infatuation's final destination, the complete and brutal devaluation of yourself. Losing David on top of losing her marriage, her home, and her sense of who she even was, that was the knockout punch. She was utterly destroyed. But from absolute rock bottom, a strange new idea started forming. It began with a whisper, an odd desire she'd had for years. She wanted to learn Italian. Sure, it was completely impractical, but it was the only thing she could imagine that might bring her even a sliver of joy. Meanwhile, another door was opening. Through David, she'd met an Indian guru, a spiritual teacher. The moment she saw the guru's photograph, her heart basically shouted, "I want a spiritual teacher." She started going to meditation and chanting sessions in New York, and felt a kind of peace that was completely new to her. And then there was the prophecy. On a magazine assignment in Bali, she met this ninth-generation medicine man named Ketut Liar, a tiny, toothless guy who looked like a real-life Yoda. He read her palm and told her two things. First, that she'd lose all her money, and second, that she'd return to Bali someday and study with him for months. Slowly, these three random threads started weaving themselves into a plan. A whole year of travel. 1 year dedicated to exploring different parts of herself in 3 different places. She'd go to Italy to master the art of pleasure, India to dive deep into devotion, and Indonesia, specifically Bali, to learn how to balance the two. Italy, India, Indonesia. 3 countries, all starting with I. A journey of self-discovery. Just like the medicine man predicted, the divorce settlement cleaned her out financially. But then, in one of those miracles that makes you believe in something bigger, a publisher bought the book she planned to write about her journey, giving her just enough money to fund her year of freedom. So she packed 2 suitcases and flew to Rome. Part 1. Italy. Her mission in Italy was beautifully simple: pleasure. For 4 whole months, she gave herself complete permission to just enjoy life. This was a radical move for someone raised by hard-working, Puritan-descended parents, someone whose entire life had been one giant to-do list. The American approach, she realized, is all about seeking entertainment, not pleasure. We work ourselves into the ground and then collapse in a vegetative state in front of screens. We've completely forgotten how to practice what Italians call bel far niente, which translates to the beauty of doing nothing. At first, the guilt was crushing. She felt like she needed to justify her pleasure, to turn it into some kind of productive assignment. But Italy and the Italians gave her permission. When she told her new Italian friends she was there for 4 months of pure pleasure, They didn't judge her or look at her sideways. They simply said, "Congratulations, go for it." So she did exactly that. She enrolled in language school, and every new Italian word felt like a singing sparrow, a magic trick, a truffle. She spent her days wandering aimlessly through Rome, getting gloriously lost, and being completely happy about it. She didn't visit a single museum except for the National Museum of Pasta. Her twin majors, she announced, were eating and speaking Italian. She made friends. There was Luca Spaghetti, and yes, that was actually his real name. He was a tax accountant who became her personal guide to the best, most authentic Roman food. He and his friends were fiercely devoted to their city and their soccer team, Lazio. After a devastating loss, they didn't hit the bars to get drunk like American sports fans. Nope, they went to a bakery for cream puffs. Luca thought it was hilarious that she was planning to go to an ashram in India. Watching her demolish another plate of pasta, he'd mockingly call her Gandhi. Then there were the twins, Giovanni and Dario. They became her tandem exchange partners, meeting regularly to practice Italian and English. Giovanni, the sweet, shy one, became a close friend. Gilbert writes about secretly wishing he'd kiss her, but she'd made a vow to stay celibate for the entire year. She'd spent 2 decades tangled up in dramas with men, disappearing into each relationship. She describes herself as a, quote, permeable membrane, completely losing herself in whoever she loved. This year was about discovering who she was when she wasn't trying to merge with someone else. But the journey into pleasure wasn't all sunshine and gelato. About 10 days into her trip, her old companions, depression and loneliness, tracked her down. They showed up in this elegant Italian garden at dusk and settled in like unwelcome house guests. She'd stopped taking her antidepressants, thinking, how could I possibly be depressed here? But she learned the hard way that you can't outrun your sorrow. It'll find you. Instead of spiraling, though, she turned to her private journal and reopened that conversation with her inner voice of wisdom. That voice reassured her, I'm here. I love you. There's nothing you can ever do to lose my love. And by morning, the goons had left. Gilbert's time in Italy was all about reconnecting with her body and her senses. She gained 23 pounds and bought new jeans she called her last month in Italy jeans, and she was totally unapologetic about it. She wrote, I exist more now than I did 4 months ago. She was healing herself not through some strict discipline or therapy sessions, but through the simple, harmless pleasure of a perfect plate of pasta, a beautiful new word, or a scoop of pistachio gelato at 9:30 in the morning. As her Italian chapter came to a close, she felt something fundamental had shifted. She'd collected herself into someone more intact, someone who understood that appreciating pleasure can be an anchor of your humanity. It was just the first step in a much longer journey, but she was no longer that broken woman on the bathroom floor. She'd found her appetite for life again. Part 2. India. From the land of earthly delights, Gilbert traveled to a place of serious spiritual discipline, an ashram in a remote Indian village. Her goal here was devotion. If Italy was about indulging the senses, India was about mastering the mind. The transition was jarring. Life at the ashram was rigorous and no nonsense. The day kicked off at 3 in the morning, with chanting and meditation, and wrapped up at 9 at night. The food was simple and vegetarian. She got assigned a job, her seva, or selfless service, scrubbing temple floors for hours every day. Her mission was to find God, but her biggest roadblock was her own monkey mind, that endless stream of thoughts swinging from branch to branch, never resting in the present moment. Meditation, she quickly discovered, was incredibly hard. She couldn't get her mind to sit still. It would get bored, angry, anxious, or all of the above at once. She writes, "Your emotions are slaves to your thoughts, and you are the slave to your emotions." The whole point of yoga, she learned, isn't just about getting flexible. The word itself means union. The task is finding union between mind and body, between the individual and God, by dragging your attention away from brooding about the past and stressing about the future. In her struggle, she found an unexpected guide, a guy from Austin, Texas named Richard. Richard was this salty, plain-spoken former junkie and alcoholic who'd been through hell and back and emerged with this deep, unshakable wisdom. He saw right through her struggles and her control issues. He nicknamed her Groceries after watching her eat and became her spiritual big brother. When she complained about obsessing over David, Richard dropped some truth bombs. He told her, "A real soulmate isn't your perfect match. A true soulmate is a mirror, showing you everything that's holding you back, bringing you face to face with yourself so you can change your life." He said David's purpose was to shake you up, then introduce you to your spiritual master and beat it. That was his job, and he did great. But now it's over. You're like a dog at the dump, baby. You're just licking at an empty tin can, trying to get more nutrition out of it. His advice was simple but profound. If you want to control things, work on your mind. That's the only thing you should even try to control. You gotta learn how to select your thoughts, he told her, just the same way you select what clothes you're gonna wear every day. This became her central practice. She started monitoring her thoughts, making a vow, "I will not harbor unhealthy thoughts anymore." She pictured the harbor of her mind and set up stricter border controls about which thoughts could dock there. Warships of abusive thoughts, slave ships carrying old grudges, all were turned away at the gates. Her biggest challenge at the ashram was a daily, hour-and-a-half chant called the Guru Gita. It was 182 verses of impenetrable Sanskrit, and she absolutely hated it. It made her sweat, it made her furious, it felt like torture. A monk advised her to stick with it precisely because she had such an extreme reaction. "If something is rubbing so hard against you," he said, "you can be sure it's working on you." One morning, after accidentally getting locked in her room, she literally jumped out of a second-story window to make it to the chant on time. Bleeding down her leg, she realized she needed to completely change her relationship with the practice. Instead of fighting it, she decided to dedicate the hymn to someone she loved purely and protectively, her 8-year-old nephew, Nick. She poured all her love for him into the song, and suddenly, that hour-and-a-half felt like 10 minutes. In that moment of selfless devotion, she found her breakthrough. She'd originally planned to stay at the ashram for just 6 weeks and then travel around India, but Richard advised her to stay put. "Forget about sightseeing," he said. "You're on a spiritual journey, baby. Don't cop out. You go set your lily white behind down in that meditation cave, and I promise you this, you're going to start seeing some stuff that's so beautiful, it'll make you want to throw rocks at the Taj Mahal." She stayed, and in the silence and stillness, she finally had her transcendent experience. One afternoon in the back of the temple, she got pulled through the wormhole of the Absolute. She left her body, her ego, and stepped into the void. It was a place of limitless peace and wisdom. It was God, and she was part of it. The experience wasn't euphoric or exciting. It just felt obvious, like suddenly seeing through an optical illusion for the first time. The deepest love she'd ever known. The moment she thought, "I want to hold on to this," she started falling out of it. The desires of the ego, I want, I don't want, pulled her back to her limited self. But she returned with a new understanding. That state of bliss wasn't something that could be taken away from her, because it was always there. She just had to practice returning to it. As her Indian chapter wound down, she found her word. In a book, she stumbled across the Sanskrit word antevasin. It means one who lives at the border. It described ancient spiritual seekers who lived at the edge of the forest, between the village of worldly life and the deep woods of transcendence. An in-betweener, a student on the ever-shifting border of the unknown. That, she realized, was her. Part 3. Indonesia. The final leg of her journey took her to Bali, Indonesia, to track down that old medicine man Ketut Lier and learn the art of balance. This was the quest, to blend the pleasure of Italy with the devotion of India. She arrived with no real plan, just a prophecy. She found her way to Ketut's village, and after a moment of confusion, he remembered her. "You, the book writer from New York, you came back." Her relief was enormous. Her apprenticeship began immediately. Every day she'd visit him for a few hours. He didn't teach her complicated rituals. He taught her a beautifully simple meditation. Sit in silence and smile. Smile with face, he said. Smile with mind, and good energy will come. Even smile in your liver. In Bali, she discovered a life of simple, easy balance. She rented a small house in the rice fields, surrounded by a garden bursting with tropical flowers. She spent mornings meditating, afternoons with Ketut, and evenings reading or chatting with new friends. One of those friends was a single mother and healer named Wayan. Wayan's story was heartbreaking. She'd divorced an abusive husband, which was a scandalous act in tight-knit Balinese culture, and was now struggling to raise her charismatic daughter, Tuti, along with 2 orphans she'd taken in off the street. They were facing eviction with nowhere to go. Little Tuti had found a single square of blue tile from a construction site and would sit on it for hours pretending she was in her own house with a pretty blue floor. Hearing this, Gilbert felt a powerful urge to help. On a whim, she fired off a mass email to everyone she knew, asking them to donate to a fund to buy Wayan a house for her upcoming birthday. The response was a global wave of generosity. In 1 week, friends, family, and complete strangers from around the world raised nearly $18,000. Actually buying the house, though, became a surreal journey into the complexities of Balinese culture, a world of spiritual energy, auspicious dates, and delicate negotiations. It was stressful, confusing, and often hilarious, requiring some serious, emergency Balinese real estate maneuvering, but in the end, Wayan and her kids got their home. It was during this time that Gilbert's celibacy vow came to an end. Through friends, she met Felipe, a handsome, silver-haired Brazilian in his early 50s who'd come to Bali to heal from his own brutal divorce. He was kind, gentle, and completely smitten with her. Their courtship was slow and intentional. She was hesitant, afraid of losing the hard-won balance and independence she'd finally found. "I'm the cake that just came out of the oven," she told him. "It still needs time to cool before it can be frosted." He was patient. He told her, "Darling, for you, I am even willing to suffer. Whatever pain happens to us in the future, I accept it already, just for the pleasure of being with you now." One night he said simply, "That's enough, darling. Come to my bed now." And she did. She hadn't been rescued by a prince. She was the administrator of her own rescue. But now, she was ready to share her life. The book ends with Gilbert and Felipe on a small boat, heading to a tiny, remote island. The same island where, 2 years earlier, she'd gone for 10 days of silent retreat at the absolute lowest point of her life. Now she was returning, happy, healthy, and in love. She reflects on a Zen Buddhist belief that an oak tree is created by two forces working together: the acorn, full of potential, and the future tree itself, which wants so badly to exist that it pulls the acorn into being. She wonders if the happy, balanced woman she'd become was the one who'd been calling the younger, struggling version of herself forward all along, whispering, "Grow, change, come and meet me here, where I already exist." As the boat anchors, they have to jump off and wade to shore. Felipe's first language is Portuguese, so he doesn't speak Italian. But just as they're about to leap into the sea together, she says to him her favorite Italian word, a word that perfectly captures the spirit of her entire journey: attraversiamo. Let's cross over. So what's the real takeaway from this incredible journey? What's the lasting lesson of Eat, Pray, Love? At its core, this is a story about permission. It's about giving yourself permission to be unhappy with a life that looks perfect on paper. It's about giving yourself permission to get lost, to tear everything down, so you can find what truly fits. So many of us live our lives following a script we didn't write. We follow the path of expectation: get the degree, land the job, get married, buy the house, and then wonder why we feel so disconnected from it all. Gilbert's story is a powerful reminder that it's not only okay, but essential to stop and ask yourself, does this life actually resemble me? The journey she takes isn't just physical across 3 continents, it's internal across 3 fundamental aspects of being human. In Italy, she teaches us that pleasure isn't some frivolous luxury, but vital nourishment for a starved soul. Bel far niente, the beauty of doing nothing, is a radical act in our productivity-obsessed world. It's about savoring the moment, whether it's a perfect bite of spaghetti or the music of a new language, without guilt or justification. In India, she shows us that devotion isn't about blind faith, but about the disciplined work of taming your mind. Her meditation struggles are so relatable it hurts. That monkey mind she talks about? We all have one. Her journey teaches us that spirituality isn't about achieving perfect bliss overnight. It's about showing up day after day, scrubbing the temple floors of your own mind, and learning to select your thoughts with the same care you'd use to pick out your clothes. It's about finding compassion for yourself in the struggle. And in Bali, she finds the synthesis, balance. This isn't some perfect, static state. It's dynamic. As Wayan tells her, to lose balance sometimes for love is part of living a balanced life. Balance is about holding both pleasure and devotion, work and rest, solitude and connection, in a beautiful, ever-shifting dance. It's about finding your center, your own internal hub of calmness, and returning to it again and again. So how can you apply these ideas to your own life, starting right now? First, ask yourself that radical question Gilbert asked in Italy. What would you enjoy doing today? And I mean really enjoy, without any thought of productivity or obligation. Start small. Maybe it's taking 10 minutes to sit in the sun and do absolutely nothing. Maybe it's learning one new word in a language you've always wanted to speak. Give yourself one small, harmless pleasure today. Second, practice what Gilbert calls diligent joy. Happiness, she learns, isn't a stroke of luck. It's the result of personal effort. You have to participate relentlessly in the manifestations of your own blessings. When a moment of contentment shows up, don't just let it pass by. Acknowledge it. Memorize it. Offer up a small prayer of gratitude for it. Seal that joy into your soul. Finally, think about your word. In Rome, Gilbert's friend told her every city has a word. Rome's was sex. New York's was achieve. What's your word right now? Is it stress? Is it hope? Is it fear? And more importantly, what do you want it to be? Gilbert discovered her word was antivation, the border dweller, the perpetual student. Just the act of searching for your word can begin to point your life in a new direction. That was a summary of Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. We've journeyed through the main landscapes of her story today, but let me be honest with you. A summary is like flipping through a travel brochure. The real magic happens when you take the trip yourself. It's in those quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or simple phrase connects with something deep inside you, that real transformation occurs. This overview is designed to help you decide if this is a journey worth your time. If anything we've explored today has sparked a sense of recognition or curiosity in you, I really encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely give you the courage to find your own path. There's a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you've found this journey valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know these stories matter, and it makes sure you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.